The colony of Aurora Prime gleamed under the twin suns, a settlement carved into the rocky hills of a distant planet. Towering buildings of glass and metal reflected the bright light, casting long shadows over streets bustling with humans from many worlds. Hovering vehicles moved smoothly above the ground, their hum blending with the chatter of colonists. Among the crowd moved Elara Venn, her dark hair tied neatly behind her head, her eyes scanning the city with both excitement and caution. She had been chosen as a diplomat, sent to oversee an important alliance between Aurora Prime and nearby human settlements. But more than duty, her heart carried curiosity and apprehension. Today was the day she would meet her future husband, Cale Arden, a man known across the colony for his silence. Elara stepped lightly along the cobblestone path leading to the central plaza. The streets were filled with vendors selling colorful foods and shimmering fabrics. Children laughed and played near small fountains, their faces bright with innocence and curiosity. Despite the joy around her, Elara felt a strange tension. The name Cale Arden was whispered in awe and sometimes fear. Some said he was a wandering guardian, others claimed he was a warrior who had faced dangers that ordinary humans could not survive. No one truly knew him. At the plaza, a platform had been erected, decorated with glowing banners that shifted color as the light changed. Colonists began to gather, forming a circle around the central stage. Elara's heart beat faster. She had read reports about Cale, studied his history as far as records allowed, but reading was very different from meeting him. She had prepared a speech, practiced her gestures, and imagined many ways he might respond. Yet one question remained in her mind. Why does he never speak? Suddenly, the plaza fell silent. A figure stepped onto the platform. Cale was tall, with a strong, lean frame, and carried an aura of calm authority. His hair was dark and straight, falling just above his shoulders, and his eyes, sharp and bright, scanned the crowd with quiet intensity. He wore simple, elegant clothes that did not draw attention but somehow made him impossible to ignore. Elara felt a shiver of anticipation. Cale did not smile, nor did he speak. He simply stood there, hands resting lightly at his sides. Some of the colonists exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to greet him. Others bowed in respect, sensing his importance without needing words. Elara stepped forward, her own voice trembling slightly as she addressed the gathering. "Today," she began, "we come together not just as individuals but as a community. We celebrate unity, courage, and the promise of a new life together. In Cale, I see strength, wisdom, and a protector whose presence assures us that Aurora Prime will flourish." Cale's eyes met hers briefly, and though he said nothing, a small nod acknowledged her words. The officiant, a kindly elder of the colony, gestured for them to stand side by side. As the ceremony began, the two were joined by family, friends, and fellow colonists. The exchange of vows was quiet but meaningful. Elara spoke freely, sharing promises of trust and loyalty, while Cale's vows were gestures and written words on a small tablet he carried. Every movement of his hands, every glance of his eyes, communicated deep commitment. After the ceremony, the crowd cheered, and music filled the plaza. Elara felt a mix of relief and wonder. Cale remained silent, yet the energy around him seemed to grow stronger. Children ran past, curious, and he bowed slightly to them, a rare display of warmth that earned smiles from the youngest observers. As night approached, the twin suns sank behind the distant hills, casting long shadows and painting the sky with shades of orange and purple. Elara and Cale stood on the balcony of the central hall, overlooking the city. The lights of Aurora Prime twinkled like a constellation brought to the ground. For a moment all seemed peaceful. Then a faint hum cut through the night. Elara tilted her head. noticing small dots of light moving in formation near the horizon. The hum grew louder, mechanical and precise. Her stomach tightened. "Kale," she said softly, "do you see that?" Kale's eyes narrowed, scanning the approaching shapes. He did not speak, but turned to her and pointed toward the horizon. The lights drew closer, revealing themselves as small, unmanned drones, sleek and metallic, moving with alarming coordination. Panic began to spread through the colony as people recognized the threat. The elder in charge of the colony raised his hands, trying to calm the crowd. "Do not panic. Our defenses are strong. We will protect everyone." But his words did little to ease the fear. The drones hovered above, their sensors glowing red, scanning for movement. They did not speak, did not negotiate. They were machines built for destruction. Ilara felt a cold hand of fear grip her heart. She looked to Kale, whose expression remained calm. In a moment that seemed to stretch forever, he reached to his side and drew a sword unlike any she had ever seen. The blade shimmered with a strange bluish light, humming faintly in the darkness. Gasps spread through the plaza. Colonists stepped back, unsure whether to flee or watch in awe. Kale's stance was precise, almost ritualistic, yet there was a fluid grace to his movements. He raised the sword high, and the glow intensified, illuminating his sharp features and commanding presence. Without a single word, Kale moved toward the drones. The first drone fired a pulse of energy, but Kale shifted, and the sword intercepted it with a hum of energy. Sparks flew, and the pulse bounced harmlessly into the sky. Another drone swooped low, attempting to strike, but Kyle's movements were a blur, his sword slicing through the air, redirecting the attacks with precision and skill that left the colony's defenders speechless. Ilara's eyes widened. She had read about Kale's abilities, but witnessing them firsthand was breathtaking. Every movement was controlled, deliberate, and efficient. In moments, several drones had fallen, their circuits fried by the sword's energy. Others hesitated, retreating slightly, as if sensing the power of the silent warrior before them. The colony began to rally. Inspired by Kale's courage and skill, small groups of colonists grabbed tools, improvised weapons, and defensive equipment. Under his silent leadership, they began to work together, using barricades and clever traps to slow the drones. Kyle moved among them, directing with gestures and glances, teaching humans how to act strategically rather than relying solely on brute force. Minutes felt like hours. The drones, precise and relentless, adapted to human tactics. But Kale's presence, his calm confidence, and the sudden realization of human courage made a difference. One by one, the machines fell, neutralized by a combination of ingenuity and Kale's unmatched skill. Finally, the last drone hovered uncertainly before retreating, vanishing over the horizon. The plaza was quiet, except for the heavy breathing of those who had survived. Dust hung in the air, reflecting the fading light, and the humans stared in awe at Kyle, who stood tall, sword lowered, its glow fading but leaving an impression that would last a lifetime. Ilara approached him slowly, her heart pounding. "Kale, you saved us," she said, her voice trembling with relief and amazement. Kale nodded once, silently acknowledging her words. No explanations, no boasting, just presence, just strength. In that moment, Ilara realized something profound. Kyle's silence was not weakness, but power. He communicated with actions, with courage, and with a mastery that words could never capture. The colonists began to cheer, not just for the defeat of the drones, but for the reminder of what humanity could achieve. They were not helpless. Even on the edge of explored space, facing unknown dangers, humans could rise. With Kale as their guide, they felt a surge of confidence, a renewed sense of unity and purpose. Ilara stood beside him, gazing at the stars that stretched across the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, more challenges awaited humanity. Yet she knew that with courage, intelligence, and silent guardians like Kale, the future was bright. And as the twin suns finally disappeared, leaving Aurora Prime bathed in the cool glow of distant stars, a single thought formed in her mind. Humanity is not just surviving. Humanity is ready to rise. The night after the drone attack on Aurora Prime was quiet, but the colony was far from peaceful. Fires from damaged drones still smoldered in corners of the plaza. Colonists moved carefully among debris, repairing equipment and checking on one another. Ilara walked alongside Kale, her mind racing with questions. "Kale," she said softly, "what are you? How do you know so much? How to fight like that?" Kale didn't answer with words. Instead, he paused, drawing a small tablet from his belt. He tapped lightly, and a projection appeared. A star map showing distant human colonies, some connected, others isolated. Lines traced routes between them, and symbols marked locations where humans had faced attacks or disasters. Ilara studied the map, realizing the scale of what Kyle had been part of. This was no ordinary warrior. Kyle had trained to protect humanity across the stars, to anticipate dangers, and to act before threats could reach colonies like Aurora Prime. She felt a mix of awe and relief. Humanity, she realized, had guardians, even in the silent ones. The next morning, the Colony Council gathered to discuss the attack. Colonists spoke nervously, worried about the drones and what other dangers might lie ahead. Kyle remained silent, standing at the edge of the room, his sword resting against the wall. Ilara noticed the council's unease. "We can't just wait for danger to find us," she said firmly. "We need a plan, and we need to be ready." She glanced at Kale, hoping he would offer guidance. Kale stepped forward, drawing the sword once more. The glow that had awed the colony returned, stronger this time. With slow, deliberate movements, he demonstrated defensive techniques, showing colonists how to block, redirect, and move with efficiency. Each motion was precise, almost like a dance, yet full of purpose. Humans began to mimic his movements, their fear slowly replaced by determination. What had seemed impossible the night before now felt achievable. Kyle, through actions alone, was teaching them a simple truth. Human strength is not only in power, but in unity, courage, and intelligence. By mid-morning, the colony had organized teams for defense, scouting, and repair. Ilara coordinated logistics, Kale trained volunteers, and the Elder oversaw the construction of barriers and communication systems. The once quiet streets were now alive with purpose. As Kale led a group of volunteers through defensive drills, a sudden alert flashed across the colony's sensor grid. The distant horizon shimmered with movement. More drones were approaching, this time in much larger numbers. The colonists froze, fear rising again. Ilara placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "They're coming," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Kale did not respond verbally. He simply raised his sword, its glow pulsating with energy. He moved to the plaza center, signaling for the colonists to take defensive positions. The humans had no experience fighting alien machines on this scale, but Kale's presence inspired them to act with courage. The first wave of drones entered the atmosphere. Sleek, metallic, and fast, they were far more advanced than the scouting drones from the night before. Energy pulses shot across the plaza, narrowly missing colonists who had taken cover behind barriers. Kale stepped forward, sword raised. With a single motion, he deflected an incoming pulse, redirecting it toward the ground where it exploded harmlessly. His movements were calm but decisive, a silent promise of protection to those around him. Ilara watched in amazement as he advanced, moving in a rhythm that seemed impossible to follow. The drones struck in waves, but Kyle anticipated every attack, using the sword not just as a weapon but as a tool to control the battlefield. Sparks flew, energy pulses scattered, and one by one, Drones fell under his precise strikes. Meanwhile, the colonists began to fight with their own tools. Engineers repurposed mining equipment into makeshift weapons, while others set traps along likely drone paths. They moved with purpose, their fear replaced by determination. Kyle's example showed them that humans could adapt, even against technology far beyond their own. The battle stretched for hours. The drones were relentless, adapting to human tactics. Yet Kyle remained unyielding. He moved through the plaza with the grace of a dancer and the precision of a master soldier. Every gesture guided the colonists. Every strike inspired them. Ilara ran alongside a team of volunteers, helping to operate a defensive turret. She glanced at Kyle, seeing the unwavering focus in his eyes. His silence was no longer mysterious. It was a strength. Words were unnecessary when actions could teach, protect, and lead. As the drones began to falter, a new threat appeared, a massive, heavily armored drone, far larger than any they had seen. It moved with surprising speed, firing pulses that sent debris flying. The colonists froze, unsure how to handle it. Kyle stepped forward, sword in hand. The glow intensified, casting long shadows across the plaza. With deliberate precision, he approached the massive drone, studying its movements. Then, with a swift, fluid motion, he struck. The sword's energy cut through the drone's outer armor, sending sparks and fragments into the air. The machine staggered, unable to recover from the strike. The colonists cheered, their morale soaring. Kyle's actions were more than defense. They were a lesson. Humans, when united and courageous, could stand against impossible odds. After the drone retreated, Kyle lowered his sword. Sweat glistened on his forehead, but his expression remained calm. The colonists gathered around, clapping and praising his skill, yet he did not speak. Instead, he gestured toward the horizon, as if warning them that more challenges could come. Ilara approached him, her heart racing. "Kyle, you're incredible. How can you stay so calm?" Kyle simply tapped the sword and nodded toward the colony. His message was clear. Humanity's strength is not in fear or hesitation, but in action, unity, and courage. That night, as the colony repaired and regrouped, Ilara and Kale stood together overlooking the city. Aurora Prime glimmered under the stars, a beacon of human determination and ingenuity. The battle had tested them, but it had also shown the true potential of humanity. Ilara finally understood that Kale's silence was not a limitation. It was a choice, a focus on action rather than words, on results rather than explanations. Humans could rise to any challenge, and Kyle was living proof. She turned to him, smiling despite the exhaustion. "We survived today because of you," she said softly. Kyle nodded once, his eyes reflecting the starlight. No words were needed. The humans had learned what he had always known. Courage, intelligence, and unity could shift the balance, even against the most advanced enemies. And in the quiet of the night, Aurora Prime slept with renewed hope. Humans had faced fear, adapted, and triumphed. The battle had only begun, but the spirit of humanity was stronger than ever, and Kale's silent strength had lit the path forward. The sun rose over Aurora Prime, spilling golden light across the city. The colony was alive again, but the memory of the drone attack still lingered. Humans were cleaning debris, repairing buildings, and checking their defense systems. Yet a sense of pride and unity had replaced fear. Kyle's actions the night before had inspired them. Ilara walked through the streets, observing her fellow colonists. Children practiced defensive drills with their parents, engineers discussed new ways to strengthen barriers, and even the council members were more confident in facing future threats. Despite the bustling activity, Ilara's mind returned to Kale. She found him near the plaza's edge, examining the remnants of a drone. His hands moved with precision as he analyzed its design, studying the circuits and structure. Ilara approached slowly. "Kyle," she began, "you've protected us twice now, but I need to understand, why are you here? Who are you, really?" Kyle looked at her, his expression calm. He did not answer with words. Instead, he motioned for her to follow him to a quiet chamber in the colony's research center. Inside, he pulled out a small case and opened it. From it, he carefully removed an ancient-looking uniform, marked with symbols she had never seen before, and a series of devices that glowed softly with energy. He tapped the uniform, and a holographic image appeared. It showed humans in distant star systems, some fighting off alien creatures, others building colonies on barren planets. Lines connected these images, forming a network that spanned the galaxy. Ilara gasped. Kyle pointed to the symbols on his uniform and then at the hologram. Slowly, the message became clear. He was part of an ancient human order, dedicated to protecting humanity from threats across space, training warriors to defend colonies and preserve human knowledge. He had been silent not because he could not speak, but because words were not always necessary. His actions, his presence, and his skill conveyed more than any speech could. Ilara felt a wave of awe. Humanity, she realized, had forces she had never imagined. Kyle was one of its finest, a guardian who had lived in the shadows, ensuring humans survived and thrived across the stars. Just as she began to absorb the truth, an alarm sounded. The colony's sensors detected a movement far beyond the horizon. The drones from before had been scouts, and now a larger alien force was approaching. The fleet was massive, more advanced, and far more dangerous than anything they had faced. Ilara's stomach tightened. "Kale, it's bigger this time," she whispered. Kale simply nodded, his calm demeanor unchanged. He began preparing the colony for the incoming fleet. Humans were assigned to defensive positions, barricades were reinforced, and energy shields were activated. Kale moved among them silently, adjusting strategies, teaching them how to respond efficiently, and demonstrating advanced tactics with his sword. The colonists followed his lead, inspired by his calm confidence. They set up layered defenses, combining human ingenuity with Kale's combat strategies. Engineers created traps and improvised weapons, while pilots coordinated sky patrols to monitor the approaching fleet. Every action was calculated, every movement purposeful. As the alien fleet drew closer, Ilara noticed that some colonists were still fearful. She gathered a group near the central plaza and spoke firmly. "We have Kale with us, and he has taught us how to act. We are humans. We are clever, brave, and united. Today, we will prove that humanity can face any threat." Her words ignited determination. The group nodded, ready to defend their home. Humans had learned from Kale that courage was contagious, that even ordinary people could rise to extraordinary challenges. The alien fleet arrived with a thunderous presence, casting shadows over the colony. Ships of all sizes moved in coordinated patterns, scanning for targets and sending pulses of energy toward defensive positions. The humans held their ground, relying on Kyle's guidance and their own ingenuity. Kyle moved like a shadow across the battlefield, sword glowing brilliantly. He intercepted energy pulses, redirected attacks, and disabled enemy drones with unmatched skill. His silence was deafening. Every move communicated strategy, leadership, and unwavering strength. Humans began to trust their instincts, improvising tactics as Kale had trained them. Ilara piloted a small reconnaissance craft, coordinating with other pilots to relay information to ground teams. She watched Kale from above as he led groups of colonists through attacks, guiding them without words. His presence made humans bolder, sharper, and more efficient. Hours passed, and the battle raged on. The alien fleet adapted, sending faster drones and heavier ships, testing the colony's defenses. Yet humans did not falter. They had learned to act as one, to anticipate, to innovate. Kyle's training and their unity created a formidable defense. At a critical moment, a massive alien ship descended close to the colony's core. Its energy pulses were stronger than anything the humans had encountered. Panic threatened to spread, but Kyle stepped forward, sword raised. With a series of precise movements, he disabled the ship's energy shields, creating an opening for the colonists to target its weak points. Ilara coordinated a group of engineers to deploy energy nets, capturing smaller drones and redirecting their attacks. Humans worked together seamlessly, inspired by Kyle's silent leadership. Finally, the massive alien ship faltered and retreated, its fleet following. The colony had survived another test. Humans had adapted, fought bravely, and proved their worth. Kyle lowered his sword, exhausted but composed, and the colonists gathered around him in gratitude and admiration. Ilara approached him, awe in her eyes. "You've shown us something incredible," she said softly. "Not just your skill, but what humans can do when we stand together." Kyle nodded, his expression calm but filled with unspoken pride. He gestured toward the colony, then at the stars beyond. His silent message was clear. Humanity was stronger than any single threat. With courage, intelligence, and unity, they could rise to meet the challenges of the galaxy. In the following days, Aurora Prime began to rebuild, stronger and wiser. Humans trained under Kyle's guidance, improving defenses, learning new strategies, and preparing for future threats. The colony became a symbol of hope and resilience, a testament to what humanity could achieve when inspired by courage and action. Ilara spent time with Kyle, learning from him not only the techniques of defense, but the philosophy behind his silence. Words were not always necessary. Leadership could be expressed through action. Courage could inspire others without speech, and unity could be built through shared purpose. The colonists began to see themselves differently. They were not helpless. They were not victims waiting for salvation. They were humans, capable of incredible feats. And with Kyle by their side, they had a guide who reminded them of their potential. One evening, Ilara and Kyle stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The stars shimmered above, and distant planets glowed faintly on the horizon. Aurora Prime had survived, but the universe was vast, and dangers still loomed. Ilara smiled, a sense of hope filling her chest. "We've come far," she said quietly, "but I think this is just the beginning." Kyle looked at her, eyes calm and steady, and nodded. His sword rested at his side, a symbol of protection and strength. Humanity had risen to meet danger, and Kyle's silent guidance had shown them the way. The night was quiet, but the colony buzzed with preparation, training, and hope. Humans had learned from Kyle's example that bravery, ingenuity, and unity could overcome even the greatest odds. Aurora Prime was no longer just a colony. It was a beacon of humanity's potential. And in the quiet of the stars, Ilara realized that the galaxy would soon witness the rise of humans who were ready not just to survive, but to shape the future. With Kyle as their guide, humanity had discovered its true strength, a strength that would shine across the cosmos. The colony of Aurora Prime was alive with energy as the twin suns rose over the horizon. After weeks of training and preparation, the colonists were ready. They had repaired buildings, reinforced defenses, and learned strategies from Kyle. But today, the real test would come. The alien fleet, larger and more advanced than before, had returned. Ilara stood atop the main tower, looking out at the distant horizon. She could see the ships glinting in the sunlight, moving with precise coordination. A shiver ran through her, not of fear, but anticipation. Humanity had faced danger before, but now they would face it as one. Kyle joined her silently, sword in hand, glowing faintly with the energy that had protected the colony before. He did not speak, yet his presence was stronger than any words. Humans had learned from him. Courage, unity, and intelligence could overcome even the greatest threats. "Are they ready?" Elara asked quietly, though she already knew the answer. Kyle nodded. His eyes scanned the horizon, calculating, observing. Then he gestured to the colonists below. They were already in position, their confidence evident. Children, engineers, pilots, and workers all stood ready, inspired by Kyle's silent leadership. The alien fleet advanced. Ships of all sizes moved in formation, firing pulses that lit the sky. Smaller drones swarmed around the colony, testing defenses and targeting structures, but the colonists were prepared. Energy shields glowed along the perimeter, and defensive turrets hummed with power. Humans moved with precision, coordinating in ways they never thought possible. Kale stepped forward, sword raised. The first wave of drones surged toward him, but he met them head-on. His movements were fluid, almost like a dance. Each swing of his sword deflected energy blasts. Each strike disabled a drone. He moved through the battlefield, teaching through action, showing humans how to respond with strategy and courage. Elara watched as colonists followed his lead. Pilots intercepted incoming drones, while engineers redirected energy to power defenses. Workers and volunteers formed teams to trap and disable enemies. Humans were no longer just defending, they were coordinating, adapting, and thriving under pressure. Hours passed, and the alien fleet intensified its attacks. Larger ships descended, firing powerful energy beams. The colonists faced their greatest challenge yet, but Kale remained calm, leading with silent authority. At one point, a massive alien ship hovered directly above the colony's central hub. Its energy pulse knocked over barricades and sent debris flying. Colonists scrambled, unsure how to stop it. Kale moved forward without hesitation, sword glowing brightly. With precise, controlled movements, he disabled the ship's shields, creating an opening. Engineers quickly targeted the weak points, sending energy pulses that disabled the ship's engines. It faltered, then retreated, leaving smaller ships vulnerable. Elara felt a surge of pride. Humanity was holding its ground. The lessons they had learned from Kyle, unity, ingenuity, and courage, were proving powerful. No one had panicked. Every action had a purpose. Every colonist was a part of a larger force. But the battle was not over. The alien fleet regrouped, sending swarms of drones in new patterns. This time, they aimed for human coordination rather than individual targets. The colonists had to think quickly, adapt strategies, and work together seamlessly. Kale moved through the battlefield like a shadow, disabling drones, guiding humans, and protecting the most vulnerable. His silence had become a symbol of strength. Actions spoke louder than words, and humans were following his example. Elara coordinated a group of pilots, instructing them to use the terrain to their advantage. They flew low, weaving through buildings, and lured drones into traps. Engineers activated energy nets, capturing swarms and redirecting them away from the colony. Workers armed with repurposed mining tools defended barricades with clever tactics. Every human played a role. Hours turned into a full day of battle. Sweat dripped, hearts pounded, and muscles ached. But no one gave up. Humans had discovered a new strength within themselves, a combination of creativity, courage, and determination that the aliens had not expected. Finally, the alien fleet faltered. Their attacks became disorganized and their strategy weakened. Humans had adapted faster than they could anticipate. Kyle led the final charge, sword slicing through the remaining drones and disabling the last of the enemy ships. The fleet, realizing defeat, retreated into the stars. The colony erupted in celebration. Humans cheered, hugged, and praised one another. They had survived not because of luck, but because they had chosen to act with courage, unity, and intelligence. Kale lowered his sword, his expression calm but proud. He had taught them more than combat. He had shown them the power of humanity itself. Elara approached Kyle, tears in her eyes. "We did it. We really did it," she whispered. Kyle nodded, his eyes reflecting the rising suns. No words were needed. Humans understood. They had faced the impossible and had triumphed. In the days that followed, Aurora Prime began to rebuild stronger than ever. Humans had learned valuable lessons. They trained daily, improving defenses, studying tactics, and preparing for future challenges. Kyle guided them silently, teaching not just with words, but with every action. Colonists began to see themselves differently. They were no longer just survivors. They were warriors, thinkers, and creators. Humanity had proven that it could adapt, innovate, and overcome any threat. The story of Aurora Prime spread to neighboring colonies, inspiring hope and courage. Elara and Kale often walked through the city together, observing the progress. Children trained under Kale's guidance, engineers built new technology, and pilots tested new strategies. Humans had discovered their true potential. One evening, as the twin suns set behind the distant mountains, Elara and Kale stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The sky glowed with shades of pink and gold, reflecting on the buildings below. The colony was alive, thriving, and united. Elara turned to Kyle. "We've come so far, and yet I feel like this is only the beginning." Kyle looked at her, his eyes calm and steady. He gestured to the stars beyond, a silent reminder that the universe was vast and full of challenges. Humanity had risen, but their journey was just beginning. Elara smiled. "Then we'll face it, together, all of us, with courage, with intelligence, with unity." Kyle nodded. His sword, now sheathed, glowed faintly in the twilight. It had been a symbol of protection, guidance, and inspiration, and humans had risen to meet it. That night, Aurora Prime celebrated. But beyond the celebrations, humans trained, planned, and dreamed. They had faced fear and danger and discovered a truth older than any weapon or starship. Humanity was strong, brilliant, and unstoppable when united. And in the silence between stars, Kyle stood watch, not as a man of words, but as a symbol of action, courage, and hope. Humanity had learned, grown, and risen, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The story of Aurora Prime, of Elara, and of the silent warrior Kale became a legend, not because of violence or destruction, but because of human ingenuity, bravery, and unity. And somewhere in the distant cosmos, other human colonies prepared for the challenges ahead, inspired by the tale of the silent man with the glowing sword who had taught them that the greatest power in the universe was not a weapon, it was humanity itself.